Hello, everyone, and welcome to our wisdom talk this week on the first stanza in the Tao Te Ching. I'll go ahead and read that out as we begin to unpack its meaning. The first stanza says, Tao called Tao is not Tao. Names can name no lasting name. Nameless, the origin of heaven and earth. Naming the mother of 10,000 things, empty of desire, perceive mystery, filled with desire, perceive manifestations. These have the same source, but different names. Call them both deep, deep and again deep, the gateway to all mystery. So what is it that this stanza is trying to tell us about? This phrase, Tao called Tao is not Tao. It's one of the central and most profound teachings of the Tao Te Ching. And it highlights the limitations of language and human understanding in capturing that true essence of the Tao. So we're going to be unpacking its meaning by exploring several key points in this talk today. So first, let's talk a little bit about the limitation of language. So the beginning verse, the Tao that can be told is not the eternal Tao. That name that can be named is not the eternal name. Suggests that any attempt to define or describe the Tao inevitably falls short of capturing its true and infinite nature. That language is a tool that's created by humans to categorize and describe the world, but the Tao kind of transcends these categories. It's beyond words and concepts, which are inherently limited and reductionist. So when we try to articulate or name the Tao, we reduce it to something finite and comprehensible, which contradicts its boundless and infallible reality. The Tao is all-encompassing, and it eludes this precise definition that we're looking for. So names and labels are merely human constructs that can't fully encapsulate the vastness of the Tao. So knowing that language has these limits, let's talk about the nature of the Tao and how it's beyond duality, how it represents the ultimate reality and source of everything, encompassing and transcending all dualities and distinctions. It's both the origin and the sustaining principle of the universe. It encompasses all the opposites like yin and yang within a unified whole. It's not confined to any particular form, idea, or entity, and it is the underlying principle that gives rise to the multiplicity of phenomenon. Another exciting thing about the Tao and this passage is that it's dynamic and ever-changing. This passage illustrates that the Tao is not static, but it's a dynamic process that's constantly in flux. It's the flow of the universe, the natural order that governs the cycles of life and change. And by saying the Tao called Tao is not Tao, it emphasizes that the Tao is not a fixed concept that can be pinned down, but it's ongoing and an ever-changing process that eludes definitive description. And for this reason, it emphasizes the importance of direct experience. We want to have practical wisdom. We want to experience the Tao. We don't want to just read about it in a book But understanding the Tao is to experience it. It's less about intellectual comprehension and more about direct lived experience. That's why we practice every day. It involves aligning yourself with the natural flow of life, coming back to the breath as we did in that meditation, and becoming attuned to the underlying rhythms and patterns of the universe. So here we just keep coming back to the practice as our minds wander away or they get caught up in everyday life. We come back to this practice, and that's the direct experience of the Tao at work. That simplicity, that humility, that return to a natural state of being that's in harmony with the Tao, that's in harmony with ourselves. That natural state of being is that open consciousness that suggests the true knowledge comes not from being attached to those things that we hold in the world, but just from experiencing this harmony, this way, the patterns of the universe, the rhythms of the universe. It really transcends natural, rational thought. We get beyond thought as we do in meditation. And we have a intuitive and more holistic understanding. So it's not about critical thinking. It's not about breaking things down into their component parts and decision making and engaging in the world with that critical mind. It's about intuition and knowing that true wisdom comes from embracing the mystery, not the known, but the unknown aspects of life, rather than forcing things into rigid frameworks and categories. We just transcend the limitations of conceptual thinking, of language. We open ourselves up to something deeper. And that leads us to that more profound connection with the Tao. The idea that the Tao called Tao is not Tao teaches this danger of overcomplication and attachment to rigid ideas. So when we can let go of control and these rigid ideas, we open ourselves up to possibility. We forego categorizing everything, and instead we embrace a more fluid and flexible approach to life. We recognize our own limitations. We recognize how we put labels on the concepts. We can cultivate that sense of humility and openness that allows us to better align with the natural flow of life, and that flow is the Tao. This allows us to live in simplicity, in harmony, and we don't place our preconceived notions onto life, those expectations that can trap us into wanting things a particular way, and our minds get stuck there. And then we're no longer open to that flow of the Tao, that flow of life. So really, this passage is discussing and advocating for a way of living that's in tune with the rhythms of nature, that's characterized by balance, simplicity, and a deep respect for the interconnectedness of all things. That key message of Tao called Tao is not Tao is the true essence of the Tao, the ultimate reality that cannot be fully captured. It cannot be conveyed through words or concepts, but it invites us to recognize the limitations of language and seek a deeper, more direct experience of the world. By embracing the mystery and fluidity of the Tao, we can cultivate harmony, a balanced way of living that's in tune with our natural state, our natural order. So as I said before, this teaching really challenges us to go beyond intellectual understanding and engage with life in a more open, intuitive, and holistic manner recognizing that the most profound truths often lie beyond the reach of our words and concepts. And that's where I'll leave you here today, just thinking about that openness, that harmony and simplicity, what reaches out beyond the ego self, beyond our words and concepts, and leaves us more in tune with the flow of life. Thank you for listening today, and I hope you enjoyed this wisdom talk on the first stanza and teaching of the Tao Te Ching. If you have any questions, feel free to send me an email.